parents have woken up. The schools are open, but the problems are still there. And parents are never going to unsee what they saw in 2020. And look, we live in laboratories of democracy, and the momentum is continuing. You have red states engaging in friendly competition to empower parents with education freedom.
Protect your children, right? We all think we're doing our best to protect our children. I guess a lot of us had a wake-up call during COVID. I know many of my friends did when their children were being taught at home and they were going to public school. And especially in Virginia, friends of mine whose kids went to school in Loudoun County had that major wake-up call. In Alexandria, Virginia, where I lived, and my daughter at the time, and for full disclosure, we have 6 children altogether, my husband and I, and all of our children went to public school except for our last child. We had her, because of where we were at, we kept her in a very small Catholic school in Alexandria. And mainly because, she was our last. I work a lot. I'm traveling a lot. My husband's a wounded war veteran. I wanted to make sure that Annalise had all of the protection she needed, because as a parent, that's what we want to do. We want to protect our kids. We want to instill in them the values that we have at home. But we had wake-up calls. We saw what the schools were doing, the unions were doing, the insanity of what was happening in our country. I guess that was the only good thing that came out of COVID, really, was the fact that we saw what the teachers were failing to do and how they were using our children, many of these schools, these unions, and abusing our tax dollars and failing us miserably. So we woke up, and a lot of parents are saying, hey, I want to have school choice. I want to be able to utilize my tax dollars in the best way possible for my children. That is so important. When I first started working as a journalist, covering gangs, covering immigration, covering the border, one of the biggest stories that I ever did was the story. It's right behind me. It's right up here. It was called Jamie's Story. And it was a story that focused on children in California that were east of Los Angeles, the Pomona Unified School District at the time, and the struggles that they were going through. And one of the children, that the reason why I started to cover this story was one of the kids. He went by the moniker, he was a gang member. He went by the moniker Yogi. He was 15 years old, and he executed Irwindale police officer on the steps of the Pomona courthouse. This Irwindale cop had gone there for a traffic ticket, a court, traffic ticket issue. And he was leaving the courthouse. He's a father of 2 children from what I remember. And he's leaving the courthouse, and Yogi pulls up in this car, and he had taken from his grandfather, I believe at the time, and a weapon. And he kills this officer in cold blood. And I thought, what is going on in our school districts? Well, our kids were dying, but now they executed a cop, a 15-year-old? How is this even possible? And I did this investigative story, this investigative report. It took me 6 to 8 months, and I covered the Pomona Unified School District. And what I found was a complete failure on the part of many teachers and the school board to do its job. I walked onto campuses. By the way, Yogi was 15 years old. He was in high school. He had been passed through every grade and could not even read the menu at a Jack in the Box. He couldn't even read the Jack in the Box menu. Many of the children in the classrooms were not even learning anything, because guess what? I was walking in with those kids into school for months, going in off and on, checking the bathrooms that had never been even cleaned by the janitors, sitting in classrooms where nobody even asked who I was. Didn't even say like, hey, are you a student here? What are you? Didn't even ask. I saw teachers, and there were great teachers, and then there were complete failures of teachers that were sending text messages or emails on their laptops and never even looked up once to see the students that were, by the way, throwing junk at each other, laughing, listening to whatever music on their headphones. They weren't even paying attention. I didn't even know how they were passing some of these classes. But this is what happens, right? when we have these monster unions that aren't protecting our children, but protecting their own pocketbooks and power. These administrative monsters that could care less about us and our children, but only about themselves. And so we wake up. We wake up finally and we say, wow, what is going on here? What can we do to make this better? And we make this better by believing that we have choices, by fighting for those choices. We are seeing that change across the country. Here in Texas, it's about to change for us. We're about to get school choice in Texas. We're already winning. There are other states across this nation that now have school choice. And now each and every one of you have to do your part as a parent or as someone in the community that actually cares about children. Cares about children, because guess why you need to care about children, even if they're not your kids? Because there is a distinct correlation between crime and education. Yes, there is. And when children are educated, they have more opportunities. And when you have more opportunities, you decrease crime. And it's not just about poverty, because many people grow up poor and they turn out great. Poor does not correlate with that. But when you have abject poverty and you have no education, crime goes up. That is a fact. I have a very, very special guest on this show. He is going to get you mobilized. He's going to get you invigorated. You're going to be like the best champion for your child that you could ever be. You're going to give your child and your grandchildren and future generations so much more just by listening to this podcast. I'm telling you, he is going to give you the tools and he's going to give you the facts about why school choice is so important. Why school choice is so important. And it's Dr. Corey DeAngelis, and we're going to have a great conversation with him today. And we're going to make you a part of the school choice military, the school choice army, the school choice, powerhouse that's going to go out there and change the lives of our children and the future of this nation, folks. But first, can't do it without Goldco. Goldco, thank you so much for being a sponsor of the Sara Carter Show. Thank you so much for helping me bring the best guests to all of you listeners out there. And I do it because of Goldco. Did you know that experts call gold the everything hedge? Did you know that? Gold goes far beyond hedging against inflation or the stock market and gives you peace of mind that your money is invested in something with real, tangible value. That's why gold just hit another record high, and central banks keep buying gold at a record pace. That's also why I've partnered with the top-rated company, Goldco. Listen to their current offer. Get 10% instant match in free bonus silver with a qualified account. Plus, visit Sara, SARA-likesgold.com to qualify for a free 1 ounce silver Ronald Reagan coin. How amazing is that? Join the thousands of people who have called Goldco the #1 rated gold company. What do I say about diversifying your money? Diversify your money to protect your family. Today, Goldco is offering up to 10% instant match on free bonus silver with qualified account. Plus, visit Sara, SARA-likesgold.com to qualify for a free 1 ounce silver Ronald Reagan coin. That's SaraLikesGold.com or call 855-823-GOLD. That's Sara, SARA-likesgold.com or call 855-823-GOLD. Happy to have Dr. Corey DeAngelis here on the show. You're a PhD and a senior fellow at the American Federation for Children and a visiting fellow at Stanford University's Hoover Institution. You've been labeled as the school choice evangelist. I see you that way myself. I see you as a true American hero for our children. And you've been called the most effective school choice advocate since Milton Friedman. That is huge. And my friend Patrick Byrne would attest to that. You are the author of The Parent Revolution, Rescuing Your Kids from the Radicals Ruining Our Schools. Thank you so much for being on the show with me today, Corey. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Hey, I want to play a video really quick because I told you before we got started, I wanted to play this video and I want to start off there because Condi Rice has this most amazing moment. You actually put it on X, you posted it, and she's talking about school choice.
So are you for school choice or not? We already have a choice system in education. If you are of means, you will move to a district where the schools are good and the houses are expensive, like Palo Alto, California. If you go across the street from Stanford, Palo Alto High has a performance arts center that looks like a smaller version of Stanford's. If you're really wealthy, you will send your kids to private schools. So who's stuck in failing neighborhood schools? Poor kids. A lot of them minority kids. So how can you say you're for civil rights? How can you say you're for the poor when you're condemning those children to not being able to read? By the time they're in third grade, they're never going to read. So if you want to say that school choice and vouchers and charter schools are destroying the public schools, fine. You write that editorial in the Washington Post, but then don't send your kids to Sidwell Friends.
So good.
Boom.
So good.
Calling out the hypocrisy at the end too. Don't send your kid to Sidwell Friends.
Right, because this isn't about rich kids.
That's right.
This is about all of the children in our country having a fair shake at an education with our tax dollars.
That's right. Right. The government school system discriminates on the basis of zip code. Some families have actually gone to jail for lying about their address to get into better so-called public schools. So school choice, having the money follow the child, that's an equalizer. The most advantaged already have some form of school choice. They can move to the best neighborhoods assigned to the best quote unquote public schools. They're more likely to be able to afford to pay out of pocket for private school tuition and fees. And yes, the cherry on top of that video was calling out the hypocrisy at the very end. It reminds me of Joe Biden. He went to private school. He sent his kids to private school, and then he pulls up the ladder behind himself and tries to fight against school choice for others. School choice for me, but not for thee. And thankfully, we have one candidate, Donald Trump, who does support school choice, who looks like he's going to win in November.
I know. I'm so excited about that. And it really is a transforming of the way we think about education. And I think the arguments that you've made, Corey, have been just so spot on. And I've seen it myself. I mean, at the top of this podcast, I talk a little bit about a story that set off my career, and it dealt with children living in poverty-stricken neighborhoods and the violence that ensued in those neighborhoods. But what was so astonishing to me is when I had started writing the story, I was going to focus on gang members and gang children and what is happening in our communities. And what I ended up discovering was a failing school system that was just ripping itself apart at the seams. And the children were not only victims of course, their neighborhoods and the poverty. I wouldn't even say poverty. They were mostly victims of crime and failing parents and failing societies, because I grew up poor. I grew up poor and I'm okay. And my mom was amazing and my dad was amazing. And, you know, but you really bring up some really great points. This is about giving all of our children a fair shake. And this is a different day and age than it was when the public school system first started.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten worse, and we've spent more they have more money than they know what to do with. If you look at since 1970, we've increased per student funding in the government schools by 170% after adjusting for inflation. Have the outcomes gotten 170% better? No, obviously not. They've gotten worse in some cases, and we now spend about $20,000 per kid per year in the government schools. In some places, it's even more. Like in New York City, about $40,000 per kid per year. In Baltimore, they have 40% of their high schools have 0% proficiency in math. Not a single kid proficient in math in almost half of the Baltimore high schools. In Illinois, over 60 government schools have 0% math proficiency. We're not getting our money's worth. And I like how you pointed out, like, school choice and improving education could do things like reducing crime. My first study, actually, you mentioned I have a PhD. I got one from the University of Arkansas. My first study there linked school choice in Milwaukee to crime reduction by the time the students were about 25 to 30 years of age. Peer-reviewed analysis finding more opportunity, more choice in education in that program that started in 1990 in Milwaukee, a voucher to go to a private school, led to significant reductions in crime. And so this isn't just about academics. This is about getting a better future, a better life, and being in a safer environment. And I think this is partially why we've seen school choice blossoming since the COVID era. Look, the teachers unions overplayed their hand. Families saw what the heck was happening, and we're not closing them ever again. And now parents, we have 12 states with the universal school choice. It's the union's own fault, but parents saw the curriculum wasn't aligned with their values, and that has kind of changed the conversation around school choice as well.
I love that. I love how you said that, because it was during COVID where a lot of parents had an extraordinary wake up call. I know friends of mine did. At that point in time, we have 6 children altogether, my husband and I. All of our children had gone to public school, but the last child, because we were like, we don't want to put her in this public school, because where we were living, there were a lot of issues with the public school. And so we had her in a little Catholic school in our district, which was not even close to being the cost of the other private schools in our area in Washington, D.C., where some parents were paying $60,000 a year, $40,000 a year. I mean, I was just like, this is insane. This is like going to get a medical degree. Like, you're putting your kids in an elementary. I was like, okay, where's the little Catholic school that's only going to charge me what the district, what it costs for my district? But one thing that was so important to me when I heard Condoleezza Rice speaking was how you could see it in her face. And it's how I feel when I go into neighborhoods like Baltimore. You talked about Baltimore, Chicago, and I travel there quite often, or Oakland. And I see these beautiful children or Kensington in Philadelphia, that are growing up in these just horrific neighborhoods filled with crime, and they can't even walk to school and feel okay about themselves, and their parents are struggling to make ends meet, and they have jobs that are supporting their families, but not good enough to get out of the neighborhood, and they have no choice at all. And Condoleezza Rice is like, you're going to write that editorial? Well, you better not be sending your kids to that private school, because these children deserve a chance too.
I mean, look at Gavin Newsom in California. The New York Post just reported the other day that he moved to Marin County from Sacramento, and he's not even sending his kid to the public schools there. He's sending him to like a $60,000 a year private school. The View, I saw a clip go on The View. I put it on social media the other day, and it went viral because I called out Sunny Hostin, one of the hosts, who said, she was repeating teachers union talking points. She wasn't just repeating them. She had a piece of paper in front of her. She was reading them off and said, this is from the NEA. She wasn't even trying to hide it. But then fighting against school choice, while she went to private school, she sent her kids to private school. The hypocrisy is nonstop. But look, families are starting to figure it out. The jig is up for the unions, and they're taking that energy to the ballot box.
The unions are just fighting for themselves. They're not fighting for our children.
Yeah,
they're fighting for tenure for these teachers that don't. By the way, I'm not taking away from teachers that actually want to do their job and love teaching, but I have seen teachers that should be removed immediately from the classroom. And I was sitting in those classrooms. They were doing absolutely nothing but emailing their friends and collecting a paycheck.
Well, that's the problem with the teachers unions. They make the whole profession look bad, even though there's a lot of teachers that are doing a good job, and they push for policies that don't help the best teachers. They fight to protect the lowest common denominator, and all they do is buy politicians. You look at Randy Weingarten's union, AFT, 99.9% of her campaign contributions in 2022, guess what? They went to Democrats. It's a money laundering operation. It ought to be illegal. So although school choice is a bipartisan issue among voters, it's become partisan among elected officials because the Democrat Party is a wholly owned subsidiary of the teachers union. And so they fight as hard as possible against any change to the status quo, but they're not doing right by teachers either. Since 1970, funding per student's gone up by 170%, but teacher salaries have only gone up by about 10%. Why is that?
Wow.
Well, they're putting more people into the system. They're putting more administrators into the system. And since 2000, we have data on this. The number of students in the system have only increased by about 7%, but the number of administrators in the system increased by about 90%. 90%. It's become more of a jobs program for administrators than an education initiative for kids. And it doesn't help the best teachers. And guess what? They figure out that they're getting paid as the same people who aren't doing a good job. So the best ones leave the profession, especially after you have people like Randy Weingarten politicizing education on a daily basis. It's embarrassing for them. And in Los Angeles during COVID, no one is ever going to forget this. They called for more money. We knew that when they were calling to reopen with more money. They also included in their plan to reopen schools a wealth tax, Medicare for all, and police-free schools. They also called for a ban on charter schools. It had nothing to do with reopening schools. It was a hostage-taking scenario. They knew they could get billions of dollars in ransom payments by leveraging the school closures. They showed they were all about themselves and not about the kids.
Such a great point when you talk about this growing administrative monster. You know, it's kind of like what we're seeing in Washington, D.C. with these massive bureaucracies that are doing really nothing but enriching themselves and creating a power base. I mean, that's really what they're doing. They're building up their pseudo bureaucratic army so that they can try to take on people with common sense like you and others who are saying, hey, wait a minute. You're hiring all these people, yet our children are failing on a global level. Most of them can't even pass math in this district. So what the heck's going on here? I mean, what do you think, like Texas right now? I think this is really important. Texas choice, actually, school choice wins here. You know, it was after the primaries here in Texas. It was just a few months ago. The New York Post ran an opinion piece that you had actually wrote. It was called "School Choice Wins for GOP as Voters Reject Teacher Union Pawns." I think that is so important. But parents have to be aware of what's going on in order for them to jump on this bandwagon. I think once they know what's going on, they're like all about it. They're like, oh man, how did I not know this?
That's right, Sarah. We're winning so much. I'm almost getting tired of winning. Just kidding. We haven't gotten California, New York, and DC yet. But look, we have 12 states that have passed universal school choice. Texas is right on the cusp. Our Senate passed school choice easy last year. This is my home state, Texas. And
mine too.
Excellent. I'm in San Antonio. But it moved over to the House.
Next to each other, Corey?
I don't know. We'll figure this out later.
Wait a minute. You're in San Antonio. I'm right here. I'm in New Braunfels.
Wow. My wife grew up in New Braunfels and went to high school in New Braunfels. That's great.
Okay. Do you guys see what happens on a podcast?
Yeah,
we'll talk about this after the show.
But look, your representative in New Braunfels got replaced by a school choice supporter. So last year, Abbott was pushing school choice. It passed the Senate, moved over to the House. 21 so-called Republicans voted with all the Democrats to block their own party platform issue of school choice. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. See if it works out for them. It didn't work out for them. After the primaries, out of those 21 guys, 14 of them are gone. That never happens in politics. Incumbents usually win 95% of the time. That trend was inverted in Texas. Why? Because primary voters held those so-called Republicans accountable. And out of the 7 who remain, 2 of them signed a pledge to pass universal school choice next year. For the first time in history, Texas House has the votes for universal school choice. So that is one of the biggest wins. It's happening. It's happening.
I'm so excited because everybody in the state has been talking about this. I remember when I first moved to this state, there were so many people that were saying, Sarah, you don't even understand. The biggest thing we're fighting for here right now is school choice. We really want that to happen. So many people on the local level, all the way up to the top state level, they were looking at this and now it's happening. I can't believe it. Like I'm so excited about this. Will it set a paradigm for the rest of the nation? I mean, will this be the paradigm shift?
Exactly. Look, we've already had 12 red states pass universal school choice, but Texas is kind of the crown jewel of the school choice movement. Once their monopoly falls, you'll have more states following. And look, we live in 50 laboratories of democracy, and Texas should have been able to get it done already. Look, Arizona got it done. They have 1-seat GOP majorities, and North Carolina got it done. And they have 60% Republicans in each chamber of the chamber are Republicans in the House and the Senate in North Carolina. They passed it with all Republicans signing on to the bill for universal school choice. So in these states that have universal school choice, what I mean by that is the money that's meant for your child in the form of taxpayer dollars, the money that goes to the public schools, if you like your public school, you can keep it for real this time, and like with your doctor, Obama. But and the public schools do get better in response to competition. It's true. It's a rising tide that lifts all boats. But
well,
if not,
it's an incentive, right? It's an incentive because now they can't just sit on their hands and do nothing and say, well, we're going to guarantee to have this many kids in our school. Now parents can say, well, you know what? You're not doing good enough.
It's real accountability as opposed to the fairy tale model of democratic accountability that they used to tell. They used to tell us, hey, the teachers unions would say, if you don't like what's happening in the public schools, we're accountable. You can show up at the school board meeting. We'll listen to you. Did that really work out as envisioned? No, they only wanted to hear from parents if the parents actually agreed with them. The moment they found out that parents were upset with what was happening in the classroom, they started to cut off their mics. They even had the National School Boards Association send a letter to Biden implying that under the Patriot Act of all things, parents should be investigated for quote unquote domestic terrorism. I mean, it's insane. It's insane. And since then,
it's what got Governor Youngkin into his seat in Virginia, because I remember sitting there, I think it was Terry McAuliffe who was saying, like, you know, parents don't have a choice. Like, it should be up to the schools. And all of a sudden I was like, oh man,
that's right. Yeah. Terry McAuliffe.
He's going to lose. He said what nobody else was saying.
He said the quiet part out loud, and he played stupid games. He won stupid prizes. Glenn Youngkin, the Republican, after Terry McAuliffe, the Democrat, he was the former governor of Virginia. He should have won. He was up in the polls by double digits. At the last debate, he said, quote, I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach. It was almost as bad as Biden's debate performance. Right. I mean, but you could actually hear what he said, and he let the mask slip. And so parents, they were upset about this. On the issue of education, Glenn Youngkin, the Republican, won by 6 points with education voters. That was the number 2 issue in the election. And he's basically laid out a blueprint, Glenn Youngkin did, for political success for Republicans going forward to lean into parental rights as a political winner. And I think some other Democrats are saying, I don't want to be like Terry McAuliffe. I don't want to lose like that. And so some Democrats in some places, in places like Pennsylvania, North Carolina, even in Georgia, some of them are voting for school choice now. And I think it's because they're feeling the heat. They're feeling the political winds shift. And the latest polling between Biden and Trump, they actually asked voters who wins on, the economy, on taxes. Obviously, Trump blows it out of the water with immigration, economy. On education, Democrats have had a decades-long double-digit advantage. They usually win because it used to be about who's spending more money on education,
right?
And it was usually the Democrats and the money laundering with the teachers unions. But now this latest poll has Biden and Trump a tie on the issue of education. I'd say, hey, it should be better. Trump should be he has better education policy. But the shift from how it used to be, Democrats winning by double digits, to now Trump neck and neck with Biden even on education, that should be an alarm bell going off for all the Democrats, even more so than his debate performance.
Let's talk about that, because I think this is very important, and Trump has time to gain on this because we know where he stands as far as school choice is concerned. Does he need to make that a more public stance? Does he need to focus on that a little bit more, maybe, or his team, because it's November. I mean, it's coming around the corner. What should the main priorities be? How can the federal government help spread this idea of school choice? I mean, or at least the people that will be in the federal government that support him.
Yeah, Donald Trump's already leaning into this, and he called for school choice when he was first in office, but also in his campaign rallies, he's explicitly now calling for universal school choice. So that's a huge deal. And he also endorsed my book. He put a post about it on Truth Social, so I'm honored to have that endorsement. Somehow it turned into a national bestseller after that happened, so I'm glad that he did that. But also, he should lean into this even more because Biden's a hypocrite on the issue. Biden went to private school. He sent his kids to private school. If Biden couldn't debate basic policy options when it came to generalities about immigration, crime, and the economy, imagine how horribly he'd have to do trying to defend his record on education and the school closures, and also just him being a hypocrite on the issue. Biden would not be able to respond to that. So another thing is polls have recently been showing Trump doing really well with the black vote. And this is an important issue for black voters too. Exactly. And I was seeing look, I mostly focus on education, but I've been looking at the Trump Biden polls. And in 2016, Trump only got like 8% of the black vote. In 2012, he got 2020, he got 12% of the black vote. The polls now are showing about a quarter to a third of black voters saying they're going to vote for Trump. And it reminds me of something that happened in Florida in 2018. DeSantis barely won by a fraction of a point. A lot of people thought Andrew Gillum, his Democrat opponent, was going to win. And the headline in the Wall Street Journal the next day was that school choice moms tipped the governor's race in Florida. They were talking about CNN exit polling showing that black moms in particular came out in force for DeSantis, because his opponent, Andrew Gillum, a black Democrat, actually called to get rid of their school choice program, benefiting over 100,000 kids at the time, mostly non-white kids and mostly low-income kids. Those moms who might have disagreed with DeSantis on a lot of other issues said, this is important. I want my kid to get a better education, a better future. And so I want them to continue getting their scholarships. So they turned out in force for DeSantis. And Trump should think about that as well, and in trying to make even more inroads with black voters.
I think that is such a valid and important point, because just like you said, and I want to just take a little step back. I know we're going to be wrapping up soon, so I want to emphasize again. When you did your PhD, you focused. It wasn't just about education per se, but it was about education and the correlation between education and crime rates in neighborhoods. And I think that is such a valid point to bring up, because people say it all the time, but they never actually focus on it. They never actually realize that this is part of a holistic approach to actually saving our communities, our children, and mama bears. That's what we want. We want to hear the message. We want to hear hey, I'm going to give you a choice to do what you need to do for your child, because you are working your butt off every single day trying to give your best for your children. And we want to give you that opportunity. And it's like I get goosebumps when you said it. I think that may be the tipping issue in this election for so many women. You hear it all the time. Oh, are women on Trump's side? Well, it's going to be the middle class women in in this district, in that area, that are going to have to be the deciders. I got to tell you this. I could care less what anyone else says, as long as my children are protected and I am given a voice. My children come first. And if you're going to protect my kids, then I'm all about you.
Yeah, you don't come after the mama bears and the papa bears. You don't mess with their bear cubs, or else they will be a more political force to be reckoned with than the teachers unions. The parents can beat the unions at their own game. We outnumber them, and parents also care about their kids more than anybody else. Certainly more than bureaucrats sitting in offices hundreds of miles away. So there's a new interest group in town, one for the kids, the parents, but it relies on the candidates to talk about the issue. And if Trump does this even more, Biden will be forced to try to defend himself. And he might pull a Terry McAuliffe. He might pull what some of the other communists have been doing. And look, there's no way to argue against school choice. There's no way against arguing that parents should have a say. But the Democrats are in a sticky situation because they've been overly reliant on teachers' unions' contributions. They're a wholly owned subsidiary of the teachers' unions for far too long. And now parents are paying attention. So when they start to get a whiff of that happening, that kind of rhetoric, anti-parent rhetoric coming from the candidate on the Democrat side, they're going to take that as a priority to the ballot box. So I feel optimistic that this momentum is going to continue, and it's because parents have woken up. The schools are open, but the problems are still there, and parents are never going to unsee what they saw in 2020. And look, we live in laboratories of democracy, and the momentum is continuing. You have red states engaging in friendly competition to empower parents with education freedom.
You are amazing, Corey DeAngelis. You are forced to be reckoned with. Remember, folks, he is the author of The Parent Revolution, rescuing your kids from radicals ruining our schools. I mean, this is what we have to do, and we should take the power back, not the unions. It's us, the American people, by going to the ballot box, just like Corey said, putting in that vote for people that support school choice. And I hope you're a part of this future administration. I pray that President Trump read your book, is listening to you. It looks like he has, and that he brings you on board so that we could do the best for our children. We get them educated and make us competitors. Like, we are falling down in education across the globe compared to other nations. I want to see us be back at the top. We are the most innovative, amazing nation on earth. We've got people like Elon Musk and others, who are making significant changes for mankind. Let's do that. Let's give our kids a chance to be there. I know we have those kids throughout all of our communities, whether it's Chicago, Baltimore, Detroit, Los Angeles, Dayton, Ohio, wherever they're at, San Antonio, Texas, New Braunfels. We got to get our kids back in competition with the rest of the globe and getting the same opportunities. Thank you so much, Corey, for being a part of the show. Hope you come back on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Hey, MyPillow folks, do you love Mike Lindell? Do you love American companies? Do you want to support people that support you and fight for you? Well, when Mike Lindell first launched MyPillow, it was solely a solution for one problem. But with the dedication of his team, guess what? They've expanded their offerings to include hundreds of products and to spread the word that they will not be part of cancel culture. Now they are hosting a $25 extravaganza, and it's going on now. Here's the current offer. Use promo code Carter, C-A-R-T-E-R, at mypillow.com to get the sale price and free shipping on your order over $75. Here are some of the products that are available for $25. Listen to this: 2-pack MyPillow sandals. They're so great. Luxurious 6-pack towel sets. I love them. The brand new 4-pack dish towels, small dog beds, beach towels. Other savings with promo code Carter, C-A-R-T-E-R, are the Giza Dream bed sheets, queen size. Right now, $59.98 with promo code. 60% off my slippers, mattress toppers as low as $99.99. You can't beat that. Go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-685-7221 today to get in on the $25 extravaganza today. Be sure to use code Carter to get the sale price and free shipping on your order over $75. Call 800-685-7221 or go to mypillow.com. Promo code Carter, C-A-R-T-E-R. Again, mypillow.com, promo code Carter. Hey, thank you so much again, Dr. DeAngelis. It was such a pleasure to have you on the show, and so nice to know that we're fellow Texans. If you're watching on Rumble or YouTube, give us a like and a follow as well, and send us to a friend if you like the show. Let's get parents mobilized. Send this to a friend. Let's get parents mobilized across the country in every single state. School choice, folks. It's the American way. Please make sure you subscribe to the Sarah Carter Show on your favorite podcast app. We really appreciate it. Follow me on Truth at Sarah Carter Official, on X at Sarah Carter DC, and on Instagram at SCarterDC. God bless you. God bless our nation. God bless all of our children, that they may all have an equal opportunity with our tax dollars to go to the school of their parents' choice. And God bless the great state of Texas.